I'm going to go over another alternative to entering a multi-hole mat. We did a simple one at the main screen with just 2 holes, and we did the array option, and now I'm just going to plug it in the multi-tab. So in here, you're going to just start plugging in all of your sizes that you have. Enter the size and just say add new opening. At this point, you can say, I know I'm going to have 6 of these. You can change the template if you want to, or change a couple of them. I'm just going to stay with rectangle for now. And then enter another one. Add new opening. You always have to say that. And it will just keep piling these on top of one another in here. It won't be organized or formatted in any way. So just be aware of that. If you already know your outside dimension, that might be helpful. You could say that maybe it's going to be 24 by 30, so you can kind of get a visual of how many are actually going to fit in there, how realistic it is for them to put it in that size. And just keep entering your sizes, adding your openings. I think maybe I'll change that to be an oval. And just one of those. And then I know I'm going to have a number of the 2x3s. And I'll have a 2x3 and maybe another, sorry, and another template, which will be, oh, see, it's just changing my number. So I'll have to change the template at the other screen. And I know I'm going to want possibly 3 or 4 of those, and I may go in and change the template on some of these 5x7s that I have. So I'm just going to say OK, and it'll pop it here, and I'm just going to double check my outside is indeed 24 by 30. And now I'm just going to start organizing them, kind of just putting them in the general area that I will want them. And you can fine tune as you go. Sometimes you can get away with doing a multi-hole by just visually eyeballing where they will go. This is, I'm just going to kind of place these where I want. So right now on my screen I see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 objects. And when you start moving these around, sometimes they can get lost, especially when at the previous screen it starts piling them on top of each other. So I'm going to double check that. So I had 12, and down here it shows me how many objects are actually on my board. And if I don't know where it is, you can click on one of the openings and just use your page down key and just start cycling through until you find the culprit. And sometimes you can just move it and sometimes you can't. But if you can't move it, you're going to have to just like move this aside and grab it and put it where it needs to go. So now I have all my objects visible, and I've kind of got them in the general area that I want them. I'm going to possibly right click and maybe change the template on it to be something else. And I also currently have my cut outside dimension box checked. If I didn't, it leaves that uncuttable region showing, which is the dark purple. And, you know, just for design purposes with the customer in particular, you can bring them around the counter and they can see what this looks like without that there. So if this looks good to you, call it good. If you really want to be precise about your openings, you can click and drag, selecting all 4 of these. If you can't get the hang of that, you can click on one of them and use your keyboard and hit the shift key and just start clicking all of these so they're all selected. And then you can right click and say group selection if they're exactly where you want. If you don't know if they're exactly where you want, like you want to make sure they're all level at the bottom or the top, with all four of them selected, go to your alignment tab at the top and use your align objects at bottom or align objects at top if that's what you want, or the align objects in the middle, which just makes sure they're all centered with one regards to one another. Since they're all the same height, it doesn't matter which one of those you use. So they're where I want them vertically, but they may not be where I want spaced horizontally. I'm going to say 1.5 inches and see what that looks like. If I don't like how that looks, I'll do 1 3/4 maybe. Let's see if that looks good. Oops, I just deselected. So you can right click now that they're centered where I want them, they're aligned with one another where I want them. So I'm just going to say group selection. So every time I move it, it's one unit, so I don't have to select them all. So now I can, as a unit, align them horizontally, and I can also on the alignment tab position it where I want it. So if I wanted it, 2 inches from the bottom, I can do that. It's just outside of that border line, but I'll leave it at 2 1/4, I think. And then you can start possibly look for groupings, and it just makes your life easier. I think I'll center these all so that they're centered one on top of the other, and then I don't think I want them evenly spaced. I think I'll eyeball that. If you wanted to line these two up together, you'll have to ungroup this and redo something, but shift click those two and say align them on the side. And hopefully it does what it just did and doesn't move this one, it moves that one. And then I'm gonna regroup these so they don't move on me. So this one's where I want it to be. These two, I'm going to group them. Actually, I'm going to make sure they're spaced vertically the way I want them first, and then I'll group them. And then I'm going to select that one and the one below it, and I think it'll move the bottom one if I do this. So I'm going to quickly scoot that over and then grab it and say align it to the left, and it will move it to the one that's already furthest most left. And then I will vertically space them to be maybe 2 inches apart. And the other ones I'm just going to kind of eyeball. So these three, actually these two, I'm going to space them vertically 1 3/4 inches. And then I'm going to group those so they stay. And then I'm going to select that group and the single one, and I'm going to space it horizontally 1 3/4 so they're the same distance. And I think I will group that as well. So then I can move it as a unit. And I can also grab that and this one and line them up on the right. I'm going to select both of those and group that, and then select these two and group it because I don't want them to move from one another. And then I'm going to select the oval and that group, and I'm going to say space objects horizontally. If I don't like how that looks, I'm going to just eyeball that. It's not going to be exactly centered here, but I wanted them to be evenly spaced right here between these three, somewhat. And then I'm going to start ungrouping these if they're kind of to the spot that I want. If you do not ungroup these and you get to the main point of sale screen to go for pricing, it will, if I had 1, 2, 3 groupings going, it would only charge for 3 openings. Very important to ungroup before you go back to point of sale. And I'm going to, on that one, double click and use this little swap button that's really handy and say I want that to be horizontal. I'm also going to change that size, I think. And I'm going to make that a little off center because I want to, over here, I'm going to go back to my openings tab and I'm going to say add V-groove opening. I don't have any openings selected on the right, so it's going to just plop it wherever. And I might have to move my circle to get at it, which I do. And then move it. And put this back, and in the general vicinity it was in. And then this V-groove, I kind of want to make it look like it's tying this small grouping together. So I'm just going to do that visually. So if I click on the openings and then unclick, I can kind of see what it'll look like when you cut it. So it uses up the space a little bit more, and it uses the space, and it creates a more cohesive grouping, like if these photos were representational of something specific to the grouping. So I'm just going to double check that everything's ungrouped and ungroup it if it's not. Those two are grouped. So I'm going to group this as a demonstration. So I had 13 objects before, and now when I look down here I have 11. That's another good reality check for you to look at and make sure that you have ungrouped everything. And once you ungroup that, then it shows that you have 13 objects again. It's not including the V-groove, which is another object. And when you're done, you just go back to point of sale.